Other combat tank systems before it, the Chieftain chassis and hull were adapted and for a broader range of battlefield applications, including a bulldozer variant, mine clearing vehicle, and an armor recovery vehicle. In fact, the Chieftain bridge layer was still being utilised whilst I was serving my British Army career. The Chieftain chassis was also the basis of the Chieftain Marksman self-propelled air defence vehicle mounting the Marksman series turret with two 35mm cannons. The Chieftain Sabre was similar in scope, fitting with a turret with two 30mm cannons and intended for mobile defence. Thankfully, the Chieftain was never really used in combat for the British Armed Forces, but by 1996 the Chieftain main battle tank was moved out of frontline service with the British Army Infantry and replaced by the more modern and superior Challenger 1 and Challenger 2 series tanks. The tank in total could carry up to 64 120mm projectiles along with 6,000 7.62mm machine gun ammo, so if it did come down to the Cold War, at least you'd have enough rounds to punch down range to stop that Russian onslaught. Honestly guys, this tank is a behemoth for its day. With that 120mm gun, it's amazing to see a British tank in that day coming up as one of the biggest key contenders for armoured superiority of its day. Sadly, its power plant really let it down, and it kind of makes me cringe a little bit being a tank mechanic. It really dropped the ball there, considering we've got such an incredible chassis, an incredible, piece of firepower to place on it, and we let it down on the mobility side. We really did. It's a sad thing, but unfortunately, when we came into tank design back in those days, we focused on armour and we focused on firepower. Mobility was really not something we focused on so much. The Germans did very well with the Leopard tank. They focused a lot more on mobility. As you can see, the Leopard, being the name of it alone, determined it to be an extremely powerful and reliable vehicle on the battlefield. Unfortunately, the Chieftains did not tick that box, but the 120mm cannon, that rifle, beautiful gun, stuck on there, clearly had some serious punching power, ready to knock out any tanks it could have faced in its career. I must admit guys, I'm British, so I'm going to be biased, and I will accept that, and I'll take the flame with you guys in the comment section, but I absolutely freaking love this tank. It is a beast, it is British, it is, designed well, apart from the power pack, and just is a legacy tank that's served very, very well. I mean, look how many Mark variants this thing has. 13 different variants of this tank with upgrades, and other countries have wanted it too. So guys, I'm going to finish off this video with a quick tour from some old British Army footage I found.
Alright, 7v7 over here.
It's a good tour of the tank. Let's have a look.
The actual beast itself. 56 tons of metal computerized fighting system, which is within the turret there. Right, what you want to do now is just walk forward and I'll show you where the driver and all the other crew go to sit. Just in here then, we have the driver's car, which is commonly known as the fridge. It's all this metal down there, collects all the coal there, and inside there it absolutely freezes. So the poor little driver's got to be very, very well lagged. Alright? So that's inside there. We'll have a look in there later on. As you can appreciate, you cannot see inside there because there's no lights. What we're going to do now is climb up on top of the turret, and I'll show you inside where all the crew go. Come on. Right then, I've already said that there are 4 crew members. What if we didn't I have now? I'm now going to show you exactly where to go. We are now stood on top of the turret. This is what's termed as a fighting compartment. Now inside here, if you get right down inside, which we'll have a look in just a moment, the gunner sits. And he sits approximately directly under my pen. Okay, so that's the second crew member. That's 2 you see now, the driver and the gunner. And we'll go more in depth as we get inside. The commander was in charge of the vehicle, its direction, its speed and the map reading. The positioning of the tank in battle positions is situated approximately here.
Right, so I'm saying
what
we
we would have
push.
is sides fitted inside the turret, or the cupola as this is termed. The larger component is the turret, right, but this is a cupola. Now we would have sights in there, but this is actually going back to base workshops, so we can get challenging. Right, the most important person on this tank, apart from the commander, is the guy that feeds us, and he also operates the radio, and he also loads the gun. He also takes messages, so this is a very, very demanding job, and the operator is situated inside there. And that's his little pen in there. When we get down inside, you'll see just how complicated it is to move around there. So if you are overweight or not very agile, you will end up with cuts and bruises all over you. As you see when you get inside, it is a small profile tank, so there's not much room. This is a good tactical move. However, the Challenger, the next time we get him, has got more room inside. And we'll cut now and we'll go inside of the tank. Here we are now sat inside of the tank. A lot of people think it does get claustrophobic, but over a number of years you do get used to this. Especially when you're travelling cross country, you don't think of the claustrophobic feeling inside. You're more interested in where you're going and what you're doing and whereabouts the enemy is. Right, so going to the seating positions now. I mentioned the gunner earlier on, the second crew member, and he sits down in that area there. And he looks
like I gotta kill that match.
Here. That is actually a weapon.
And the
Take two.
Panzer
Right, yes, as I was
Howitzer, whatever
mentioning,
it's called,
that
takes me out there.
is the laser sight for the gunner
Alright.
to aim onto the enemy tanks, and it fires a laser beam. When the laser beam comes back, it gives us
Let's see over here. Yeah, same guy Matson is.
Welcome back everyone, it is me Maximus. Thank you for joining me on today's video. We are talking about the nature of future mechanized warfare. When it comes to armored warfare, especially the tank and armored vehicle tactics, many people, perhaps most actually,
In the
imagine
queue right
massive
now.
clashes like you see here of steel monsters on the battlefield with hundreds of war machines fighting against one another. This notion, though, largely supported by war movies and our history of the Cold War and actual events of Second World War, might appear very realistic at first glance. But real tank battle is pretty different, and I can't say that I've ever been involved in a full real tank battle. I'm sure many of my viewers and subscribers who are part of the armed forces in the past and their veteran careers have been involved in tank conflict, but massive tank versus tank battles have been very rare, and unless we count and complete the one-sided destruction of the Iraqi armored forces by overwhelmingly superior armored firepower in its day, it practically disappeared after the 1973 Yom Kippur War and lesser-known India-Pakistani conflicts. The primary task of a tank was never to fight other tanks only. It was simply to wage war against whatever forces it encountered. Infantry, tanks, artillery, whatever it came across, it would destroy it, at least during the First and Second World War. This was mostly infantry and artillery, and including anti-tank guns, and softer targets such as trucks and APCs, and of course, enemy tanks. Should they be encountered though? Tank-on-tank engagements were fairly rare in the most part for World War I because they were so limited in number. World War II they increased, and as we see in the modern day battlefield, they decrease in tank-on-tank
3K
engagements
damage
more.
right there.
But while the tank was always a force
Third
to
on
be
the
reckoned with on the
scoreboard.
battlefield, the development of anti-tank missiles and modern ammunition, which made old steel armor largely obsolete, cast huge shadows of doubt over the usefulness of the tank concept itself, especially in the 90s and 2000s, with the disappearance of the threat of massive tank battles to the west after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Of course, there is always that debate of, do we still need tanks? And I've done videos on this in the past if you want to go check them out. The arms of the armor race continued, and tanks, especially Western ones, were becoming heavier and bulkier, encountering the same logistical issues their predecessors and crews encountered in the late 1940s. The War on Terror changed the political and tactical landscape yet again, with primary threat no longer being massive Soviet armies, but small, albeit sometimes well-armed, groups of combatants which usually lacked their armor support, but were equipped with man-operated anti-tank weapons and
Another
IEDs.
77.
Tanks suddenly required the means of protection against these threats. Who would have thought these gigantic beasts required actual protection? They they were normally the ones protecting others. Most of the weapons that were being used against these armoured beasts were high explosive anti-tank weapons or heat rounds, which further increased vehicle weights. Even worse though, these groups often operated in urban areas and cities, which are the worst environments for tank to fight in because enemy infantry can occupy buildings, nooks and crannies, and exploit armor weaknesses from multiple angles. The failed Russian attack on Grozny was a prime example of what can happen if tanks enter a city unsupported. While tanks have shown their usefulness in even anti-terror operations in the early 2010s, few imagined full-scale battles that include armed clashes returning to the modern battlefield. And yet, here we are, 2019, armies around the world training their tank crews to engage tank-on-tank battles. It's kind of baffling, really, that we go back and forth in this way. But there is some interesting flashpoints that could occur in modern-day conflicts. Of course, I'm not going to speak rhetorically to each political incident that could occur in these kind of conflicts, but let's be honest, the risk and capability of tank-on-tank engagement is definitely something that's in the spotlight around the world. One of the more interesting and non-classified works of covering these changes in modern warfare is a treatise by Dr. Philip A. Carber. While his work deals with the general aspect of changes in warfare, some specifically relate to the mechanized warfare. He uses the war in Ukraine as an example, but the lessons can generally be applied to other different conflicts as well. The foundation of these changes is the appearance of the new type of conflict, a hybrid war that involves paramilitary forces with high-tech military equipment and armor acting as proxies for someone else's interests. Proxy wars are nothing new, and they rarely lead to a massive leap in tactics or warfare development. One of the few exceptions was the Yom Kippur War, which led to re-evaluations of military realities that had been taken for granted prior to that particular conflict. When it comes to armor and tanks, the war in Ukraine is basically waged primarily with Soviet-era equipment, T-64s, T-72 main battle tanks, BMP vehicles, and other various platforms. Dr. Carber defines the four new elements of this type of conflict as follows: widespread appearance of unmanned aerial vehicles, increased lethality of indirect or artillery fire, widespread interactions between anti-tank guided missiles and armor improvements, and the decline of DMP or APC vehicles and other light armor. The first point is only partially relevant to the changes in armored warfare, but has a major impact on unit recon capabilities. The ability to launch recon drones has reduced the need to perform such reconnaissance with units on the ground or manned aircraft. This has considerably increased the lethality of indirect fire due to the influx of high-quality intelligence. However, the use of drones and subsequent artillery strikes against mobile armor formations is quite limited, due to the information transition lag between the drone itself and the fire support units, which bring us to the second point. Compared to previous engagements and Western predictions, the lethality of artillery strikes is much higher than expected due to the widespread use of sub-munition rounds fired by MLR rest systems. Artillery in general accounts for roughly 85% of all casualties. This trend can be observed in other conflicts as well. Although the forces in Syria or Yemen generally do not have access to advanced MLRS ammunition, the massive increase in artillery fire can be devastating to a mechanized force as well as the raw manpower. In one instance, 2 entire mechanized battalions were practically wiped out in the space of 3 minutes. Another interesting fact is the apparent effectiveness of actually quite old pieces of artillery, with the most common being the 122mm 2S1. Although such antiques as the German World War II 105mm LEF-H-18 howitzer also have been used in Syria. The S-21 in particular was pressed into service as something that it was not designed to do, as a self-propelled anti-tank gun and direct-fire assault howitzer, and it appears to have done quite well in both roles. In its anti-tank role, the 122mm shell impacts are devastating even against some tank armor, and have been seen knocking off turrets of actual active tanks. The 2S1 losses, however, were quite high, since the vehicle lacks any speed or armor to compare to most main battle tanks. The use of Soviet-era armor has been one of the characteristics of conflicts in Ukraine and Syria. In most of these cases, these vehicles have been heavily upgraded and feature air raid kits. These kits are quite effective against single warhead anti-tank missiles and rocket-propelled grenade launchers. They can, of course, be overcome, but modern tandem warfare ATGMs were never deployed in large volumes, although Syrian army tanks have taken losses from enemy forces operating the American tow weapon system. This, in any case, in Ukraine, generally means two things. infantry with single warhead launchers are once again quite vulnerable to tank assault. And secondly, the main tank killing weapon is once again the 125mm smoothbore gun of the tank. Combined with the defensive capabilities of most modern vehicles observed participating in such conflicts such as the T-72B3, the tank once again finds itself in a dominant role on the battlefield, like the apex predator it was designed to be. The fact that modern Western or Russian vehicles can completely be overrun the older Soviet equipment is well known, as has been demonstrated multiple times, most notably in Iraq, but the difference between upgraded variants of the same tank and non-upgraded variants is extremely high as well. According to some data, the kill ratio between comparable models is roughly 1-to-1, but against modernized variants of the T-72 tank, the ratio shifts drastically to 1-to-3. For every 1 kill, 3 of the modernized tanks or 3 non-modernized vehicles were lost. The other interesting extreme would be the use of modern Western tanks in Yemen by the Saudi forces, who have suffered huge losses while using modern Abrams and Leclerc main battle tanks. Whether such losses can be attributed to poor tactics or training is a source for extensive debate. Due to the heavy tank losses in Syria on both sides, it has sparked a number of innovative projects. In Syria, most of the improvements involved attaching random numbers of large metallic objects, bars, grills, railings and such to vehicles, likely in hope of creating a homemade cage armor set similar to what we see on more modern day armored fighting vehicles. How well these improvements performed is anyone's guess, as they were completely custom, although some reports suggested that the improvised cage armor can be effective at least against RPG-7s and RPG-26s, which are very much a formidable anti-tank weapon. On the Ukrainian side, several heavily armored fighting vehicles were developed, including an improvised super heavy IFV based on the T-64 chassis called the Azovets, or rather more impressive BMP-64 by Morozov Machine Building Design Bureau in Kharkov. Both, in theory, feature excellent levels of protection, but whether they'll be mass-produced remains still to be unseen to this day. While the main feature of newly developed vehicles seems to be their excellent armor, and one of the most common armored fighting vehicles in the above-mentioned conflicts is one of the least armored ones, the BMP and its variants. The BMP vehicle series has been more of a symbol of the Soviet armored might ever since its introduction, and has participated in a large number of conflicts, usually with some mixed results. But it's this hybrid type of war that exacts the such extraordinarily heavy toll on this class of vehicles. The BMP emphasizes firepower and speed over protection, but the widespread use of very accurate and very powerful 30mm automatic cannons, as well as precise artillery strikes, have drastically reduced the already low survivability of this type of vehicle, as they can be heavily damaged even by extremely popular twin 30mm guns, usually mounted on fixed mounts or on a pickup truck, including the 23mm guns. This evidence suggests that the BMP vehicles are especially vulnerable to thermobaric warheads and artillery using submunition. A hit practically always results in the catastrophic damage and death of the entire crew, as well as the infantry unit in the back, forcing these smaller units using the BMP vehicles to dismount rapidly when fired upon, negating the complete point and mobility advantage of the vehicle even further. High losses of this type of vehicle have led to some conclusions that the future of modern IFV lies in the heavier category, or at least in variants capable of carrying extensive cage, ERA kits, and IED defensive capabilities. In conclusion, recent conflicts have really shown us that heavily armed vehicles do have their place on the battlefield, and tactics are changing randomly depending on the dynamic of warfare at the time. Despite the threats that modern-day infantry carrying anti-tank weapons pose, the age of the tanks is for sure not over yet and will not be for some time. Military tactics are changing, including Russian tactics on the basis of how tanks operate. With Russian vehicles participating in Syrian conflict, it had pointed up a number of weaknesses in the actual tactics used of armor on the battlefield. Increasingly, tank crews are faced with the threat of explosive cars and anti-tank guided missiles, IEDs, and because of this, the Russian military officials made a change in using tanks on the battlefield with specific tactics in regards to how engagements were made. Andrei Stalinov visited the Pognovio test range in Russia's Vozyne region to observe tactical exercises by the 20th Guards Combined Arms Army and looked at how modern warfare has changed Russian battlefield tactics of using tanks. First of all, he noted the introduction of 3 new elements of tank combat, which appeared on the basis of experience of the war in Syria. Three of these points are made as the tank carousel, tank trousers, and the Syrian shaft. Now, just bear with me, folks. These are the statements that they've been given in terms of tactics. I don't make this stuff up. Each of the new elements has its own characteristics, however, which take into account the technical and moral backlog of Russian tanks such as the T-72. For example, a tank carousel is a non-stop shooting where 3 to 6 or 9 or more tanks move uninterrupted in a circular motion, one pummeling the enemy, the other moving to the rear and reloading, and the third preparing to enter the fire position, and so on and so forth. According to Stanislav, the tank carousel can be used when it's unknown what kind of armament the enemy has at its disposal: tanks, anti-guided missiles, grenade launchers, etc. Another element is known as the it's hard to say it, but the tank trousers, which involve tanks alternating fire between two trenches without staying in one position for more than a few seconds. The tank enters the trench, fires, kicks into reverse, and moves to the next. The enemy anti-tank weapons don't have time to react to that. Local conflicts clearly show that positional defense and offensive in the classical sense have outlived its usefulness. The main task of a tank then on the battlefield is to constantly maneuver and hide away the weakly protected machines to fold in the terrain. Finally, the third tactic, known as the Syrian shaft, involves tanks hiding behind parapets and shooting through holes in the wall before scooting away, which is effective against HGM and ID attacks, according to James. Overall, though, it seems as though militaries around the world are looking at different options when utilizing main battle tanks or armored or mechanized warfare in general. It is an interesting concept. It always changes. There's never a standard operating procedure when using tanks or tracked or armored fighting vehicles, because situations change, battlefields change, scenarios change, and I always find it very, very fascinating to see the kind of, situations that these vehicles and the troops can be placed into and how they counter them. What do you do when you have an RPG countering you in a woodland environment? What do you do when you have tanks behind that, supporting those RPG teams, instead of what we believe and perceive to be as these big tank-on-tank battle engagements, which truly is just not the case when we put it into the realistic side of things. There is actual infantry with, high-tech weaponry supporting tanks, giving them a new edge, because really nowadays it's not the tanks supporting the infantry, it's the infantry supporting the tanks. When it comes to just the most primitive of weapon systems, an RPG, even some small arms fire can put out a sight or two, or optics that the tank needs to use to operate that main gun, or even some of the more sort of intricate weapon systems like the common weapon system. RPGs are the way forward for just taking out vehicles in closely confined spaces like woodland, cities, and we're seeing more and more, the technology that's trying to counter that with, active protection systems and such. So it's just a very fluid battlefield nowadays when it comes to tank and mechanized warfare, and I think it's really, really cool. And I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned, or at least took on a little bit of, different way of thinking about armed warfare. I appreciate you all being here today. If you did enjoy the video, please leave me a like. Feel free to check out my links in the description box below, including my Patreon, for any support that you wish to give, and I appreciate every single one of you, and thank you to those who have been supporting my Patreon. I also have my Discord on there, so if you want to come have a chat or play some video games, you're more than welcome to on there too, along with my Facebook, Twitter, and all the other fancy links that you want to check out in the description box. Leave me a comment and hit the little bell button by the subscribe button so you can be notified of any videos in the future. All the best, folks. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. describe as kind of a Bradley IFV on steroids, or maybe the Ford Bronco Bradleys. Either way, it looks like it's been hitting the gym and ready to throw down. But this isn't just about looks. This thing is built for battle. Not only that, it's amphibious, very modernized in its style and its technology. And while I'm a little surprised they went with a 30mm Bushmaster autocannon, it's still providing itself a very serious contender on the battlefield. And a vehicle I actually knew nothing about. I did not know what Poland's infantry fighting vehicle was, which is why I actually had to research it. So let's break this bad boy down and kind of see what it makes it tick. But before we do, let me know what your favorite track infantry fighting vehicle of the world is. As you all know, mine is the CV90. Very close second is the Warrior, but this actually might be my third place. I don't know. I think more for the fact that I love the fact that Poland's produced it, and I think they've really pushed everything into this platform. I heavily respect that. And unlike other countries that have a larger defense budget or defense culture than Poland does, I think this is a very bold vehicle and very bold move for them, which is why I think it is going to come into my third place. But let me know in the comment section what your favorite vehicle is. So let's get into this. Now, it's pretty obvious that Poland's military modernization has been in motion for years, but the need for a new infantry fighting vehicle became very urgent as regional threats escalated. The Warsaw, which translates to Badger, is Poland's answer to the outdated Soviet-era BWP-1s. The Polish armed forces needed a modern IFV that could match NATO standards, which would improve protection, firepower, and mobility, all while maintaining an amphibious capability, something that most European IFVs lack. And this is why I think this vehicle is quite interesting. Those big old chutes at the back there pumping out water actually give this ability to do quite a lot in the water. And I was kind of shocked at the size of this vehicle. But when you look at boats, they're absolutely massive. They still float, and that's kind of what this thing is. It almost is a boat-sized IFV. The project officially began in 2014, led by Huta Stalowa Wola, or HSW, under Polish Armaments Group, alongside a consortium of defense companies. Funding came from Poland's National Center for Research and Development, ensuring the vehicle will be fully domestic in its design rather than foreign adaptation, which is a big deal for me. I love countries that can produce their own equipment, and I have massive respect for that. By 2017, a prototype was revealed at the MSPO Defense Exhibition, marking a milestone in Poland's independent military manufacturing capabilities. Testing ramped up between 2018 and 2023, with the vehicle undergoing live fire trials, mobility tests, and amphibious exercises, as you can see here, to ensure battlefield readiness. In 2023, the Polish government signed a 1,400 vehicle procurement deal, marking one of the largest IFV orders in modern history. That is a massive fleet of IFVs, folks. And let's be clear here, it's not just the IFV variant. There's a multitude of different variants, which we'll talk about shortly, but that is a huge order. And of course, they want these vehicles quickly. Production of the Warsaw is expected to start in 2024 and is expected to finish in roughly 2027, replacing the BWP-1 across Polish mechanized brigades. With NATO standard features, cutting-edge weaponry, and adaptability for different roles, Warsaw really positions Poland as quite a serious defense industry player, particularly for IFVs. The geopolitical situation in Eastern Europe has only reinforced the necessity for this vehicle and for Poland. The Warsaw is not just a replacement, it's a bit of a step into the complete future for their IFV fleet, aligning Poland's armed forces with Western military doctrine while ensuring self-reliance in its own production. With full-scale production imminent, the Warsaw IFV represents Poland's commitment to its national defense and, of course, modern warfare, keeping up with the times. There is such a massive market for IFVs right now. I really do feel this is a very strong contender in many different configurations that exist out there. The Warsaw's hull is constructed using advanced composite armor, offering ballistic protection against small arms fire, shell fragments, and anti-tank threats like RPGs and IEDs. The front of the vehicle meets Stanag 4569 Level 4 protection, capable of withstanding 14.5mm armor-piercing rounds, while the sides provide Level 3 protection against 7.60mm rounds. Of course, though, additional modular armor can be installed to enhance survivability based on mission requirements, meaning they're just going to pack a bunch of modular armor on there. As I know many of you are screaming in the comments right now saying, Matt, 14.5mm armor-piercing rounds to the front is nothing. Well, yes, most vehicles that are not up-armored cannot withstand more than about that in infantry fighting variant configurations. commander's safety, the Borsuk is fitted with a modern small miner, reducing the risk of fragmentation injuries in case of penetration. It also features an advanced CDRN filtration system, ensuring protection against biological, biological, and nuclear threats. Unlike its BWP-1 predecessor, which was highly vulnerable to modern anti-tank weapons, the Borsuk integrates its own active protection system designed to detect and intercept incoming threats before impact. Additionally, 8 81mm smoke grenade launchers provide rapid concealment, allowing the vehicle to evade laser-guided munitions and enemy fire, and can actually be directed in a automatic configuration, allowing the commander to focus on other things. The driver's compartment is positioned on the front left with thick vision blocks providing enhanced battlefield awareness, and the troop compartment can accommodate 6 dismounted soldiers with a rear ramp for quick entry and exit under combat conditions. Overall, though, its armor and survivability are under significant upgrade over previous Polish IFVs, ensuring that troops are much better protected, more mobile, and more deployable on the battlefield. The Borsuk IFV is not just about protection, it packs quite a serious punch, and at the heart of its firepower is the ZSSW-30 Remote Control Turret, a Polish design system that makes the vehicle a formidable force on the battlefield. 30mm is a round I can get behind. I use it in Afghanistan with the Warrior. It is a formidable platform, particularly with the Bushmaster setup that they are using in this configuration. Now, lots of people debate me on what's the best caliber to have as an autocannon for an IFV, and as I've said many times on my channel, anything above 30mm, in my opinion, is the way to go. Yes, I know many of you can say, but that 25mm did so well against the T90, and I know so many of you in the comments are also going to be saying, the T90 wasn't taken out by the Bushmaster and the Bradley. Look, I'm saying at modern day standards, 30mm and above is the way to go. Personally, I would actually select 35mm, but this is a formidable gun. It's something that certainly should be feared if you are going against other infantry flank vehicles or armored personnel carriers in this configuration. It is mounted alongside the coaxial 7.62 UKM 2000C machine gun, providing additional firepower against infantry and light vehicles. This secondary weapon allows for sustained suppressive fire, giving supporting troops the ability to advance undercover, and with 6,000 rounds stored inside, it has a lot of ammo to push down range. For anti-armor engagements, the vehicle is equipped with dual Spike LR anti-tank guided missiles, which are very renowned from the Israeli defense market. Spike is my favorite long-range anti-tank missile. There's been some debate about how effective it is, but in terms of features and what this thing can do, I'd say this is a very smart selection for an anti-tank guided missile for a vehicle of this kind. These fire and forget missiles, developed by Israel's Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, can engage main battle tanks and fortified enemy positions with pinpoint accuracy. Mounted on the turret's right side, they provide long-range lethality, allowing it to engage threats beyond direct line of sight and have top-down attack engagements. And technically, the missile can also be used for reconnaissance because it has a camera that is monitoring the area before it engages and can actually select its targets. It's a very complicated missile. Go check out my video that I've done on it in the past. The ZSSW-30 turret is fully stabilized, allowing the gunner to fire on the move without losing accuracy. Unlike my favorite Warrior, it features independent targeting systems for both gunner and commander, meaning they can simultaneously track and engage multiple targets, which is a crucial advantage in high-intensity combat. Of course, we call this hunter-killer capability. Gunner's doing one thing, commander is looking for another. To further enhance battlefield survivability, it integrates the OBRA-3 laser warning system, alerting the crew when they are being targeted by enemy laser weapons and being beam-rated. Paired with the smoke grenade launchers, the vehicle can very quickly deploy a defensive screen to break enemy lock-on, reducing the chance of being hit by potential ATGMs or even drones. In short, though, it's not just a troop carrier. It can be doing quite a lot of work in the assault configuration of those anti-tank missiles and that 30mm gun. And I really do respect the fact that the turret system is autonomous. It is not crewing up with people inside of there, causing issues for if it gets engaged. The vehicle can go in a bit of a hold-down position and do its own damage from a long distance. And what's interesting about this vehicle is it's picking some of the best technology and equipment to put into this thing. The vehicle is powered by the renowned MTU 8V199 T20 turbo diesel engine, producing an impressive 720 horsepower. That's a lot of juice for a vehicle of this kind. This powertrain allows the Borsuk to reach speeds of 65 kilometers off-road and 8 kilometers an hour in water, maintaining strategic mobility in varied environments. Designed for harsh terrains and adverse weather conditions, it features 6 double-tired road wheels per side with a front-mounted drive sprocket and rear idler. Its composite rubber track system, supplied by Susi Defense, reduces vibration and noise while also cutting down on weight compared to steel tracks. So recently, I was checking out some of the comments that you guys had, and you said that somewhere in there that I did not like rubber tracks. That is a complete farce. I actually love rubber tracks. I do think they have their weaknesses, but in terms of modern IFV fleets, rubber tracks make sense. I'm personally a favourite fan of steel tracks because I think they have better survivability in certain cases, but when you're talking about 1,400 vehicles, you want something that you can quickly get into the battle. Yes, rubber tracks are a lot better, but the vehicle can come with steel tracks too, as you can see. This gives it a smooth ride and enhances crew comfort during long-range operations. And being that I've been a crew commander, driver and operator of Warrior, I can safely say that you do not want to be rolling for long periods of time on a metal track. It is horrible. When I was in the CV90 on their rubber track systems, so much nicer, it's just more comfortable. To ensure that effective amphibious capability, the Borsuk is equipped with two very powerful rear-mounted water jets, not like propellers, allowing it to traverse rivers, lakes with additional preparation. It could even potentially deploy in the sea. With a deployable breakwater at the front of the hull, it improves stability in choppy waters, making the vehicle highly maneuverable in amphibious operations. Its low ground pressure and high suspension travel allow the Borsuk to navigate mud, snow and rough terrain more effectively than some of the older IFVs. Whether it's in urban battlefield or an open countryside engagement, the Borsuk is built for rapid and sustained movement, and Poland's emphasis on mobility and amphibious capability ensures that it can support fast-moving mechanized infantry units, giving the Polish forces a bit of a tactical advantage in both offensive and defensive operations. Beyond its firepower and mobility, the IFV has quite a lot of technological involvement. It's a powerhouse, really, actually packed with a lot of modern battlefield systems that enhance its combat effectiveness. One of those standout features I had mentioned is that hunter-killer and killer-killer targeting systems. In hunter-killer mode, the commander identifies the target with a panoramic sight on top and designates it for the gunner, who then automatically aligns the turret and engages. In killer-killer mode, both commander and gunner can engage separate targets simultaneously, significantly increasing the vehicle's combat efficiency. In theory, you could fire the spike into the one vehicle and the gunner engaging with 30mm in the other. Whether or not that's effective or not is yet to be known. I mean, killer-killer mode using an ATGM and the main gun at the same time would be rather impressive to see. The turret's bi-axially stabilized observation devices allow for precise target tracking even when the vehicle is moving at very high speeds on the road. A wide-angle periscope provides emergency observation, ensuring that the crew maintains situational awareness in all conditions. It also has a Orbiter 3 laser radiation detection system, as I've mentioned, but it does have the ability to have cameras placed on there too, to have situational awareness for the crew in the back and for the driver when he's hull down with his hatch closed, because there's nothing worse than driving just using vision blocks. I used to do it and I hated it, particularly in gross conditions or at night. When you have systems that can use cameras and night vision, it's going to make things so much easier for the crew to operate at night or in horrible conditions or smoke. Communication is another strong point for the Borsuk, featuring the Fonet digital internal communication system. This system provides seamless voice and data transmission, ensuring that the crew remains fully connected to one another in the vehicle and to battlefield command and allied forces in the area. And I know all of you hate me saying this word, but it is a modular, and say it again to really upset you guys, modular chassis. It's serious, every comment section I go to, someone gets upset that I talk about platforms being modular. It's just, that's the way things are. Militaries want modular chassis to allow it to serve multiple roles beyond that of just the standard infantry-flank vehicle. And the Polish military has planned several specialized variants, including flexibility for different battlefield scenarios. Like most IFV fleets, it does have a command post vehicle equipped with advanced communication and battle management systems, allowing commanders to coordinate large-scale operations from the front lines, which of course with 1,400 of these vehicles going into potential operations, you need a very good command and control system. It also has an armored recovery vehicle designed for obviously vehicle repairs and recovery, a medical evacuation vehicle with casualty evacuation providing rapid medical aid and carrying up to 4 stretchers in the back. There's also a 120mm mortar carrier, the RAK M120G, armed with a self-propelled mortar system allowing for high-volume indirect fire support to frontline troops. Yes, kind of looking at the AMOS style vehicle from the CV90 standard, and this is something I'm actually going to do a separate video on in the future because I'm kind of intrigued as a gunner as to what this mortar carrier will be. There's also a reconnaissance variant, which is fitted with enhanced sensors and surveillance systems and better sights for for longer range scouting and intelligence gathering, including drone control. And finally, a mine diffuser vehicle designed to clear hostile terrain of explosive threats, ensuring safe passage for Allied forces. So let's summarize Poland's next generation infantry fighting vehicle. To be honest, it's really designed for modern warfare, and that emphasis on protection, firepower, and particularly mobility is key here. Poland continues a huge amount of modernization. I think this is one of the tip of the spears of that modernization, a very formidable IFV that I feel a little embarrassed that I didn't know enough about sooner. It is quite new, which is of course why I've probably not seen as much in the context of the defense world, but military analysts are getting quite excited about this platform. I personally am, because I do feel it's taking the best of all sorts of different technology and pumping it into one vehicle. That powerful 30mm cannon, the Spike LR anti-tank missiles, amphibious systems inside of there, a good MTU engine. It's a big deal, folks. The Borsuk, I think, is certainly a contender against some of the even more prominent Western IFVs. Of course, it's not as technologically advanced as, say, the Lynx or, even Puma, but it's adaptable through its multiple variants, ensures that I think Poland has an armed forces with a very versatile and prepared IFV for a lot of different combat scenarios. As serial production ramps up, this vehicle will become the backbone, really, of Poland's military strategy, reinforcing NATO's commitments while strengthening national defense and giving the infantry a solid platform if it comes to it to go to battle. So, as always, I love reading the comments through my videos, and trust me, I read a lot of them. I try my best to read all of them, and it's hard to keep up, but I'd love to hear your input in this vehicle. If I got anything wrong, please correct me. Of course, I do make mistakes in some of my research, and I appreciate you all making those corrections. It helps educate me better. I am certainly not a subject matter expert in the military vehicle around the world, so you as my community have been doing great and giving me corrections and modifying videos for the future, so thank you for doing so. Also, a massive thank you for those who've been sending super chats recently in the comments to some of my videos. I really appreciate that gratification and I guess, awarding work that I've done. It means a lot to me. And if you have been supporting me financially on Patreon and PayPal, thank you also for doing that. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. Join us on this journey as we look through further military equipment in the future. And if you're already subscribed, it's actually quite a good idea to click that bell button. I know these are all cringy, cliche, horrible YouTuber comments, but the algorithms are a struggle for me right now, folks. I won't lie to you. So if you could do anything in your power to hit the like button or just give me a comment, it really, really means a lot to me on a personal level. So thank you all so much for watching today, and I hope you enjoyed learning about the Borsuk IFV. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye.
Alright, 7v7 over here. Almost done.
Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Matt. Appreciate you being on today's video. Just a quick reminder, if you do want to be notified of any upcoming videos in the future, please click on the little bell by the subscribe button. Today we are talking about the CV90 family of vehicles, and many of you should probably know this by now. This is my favorite armored fighting
3 hits there.
the infantry fighting world out there, and not just the infantry fighting world. As you can see, these vehicles are also capable of being somewhat of a tank destroyer with the 120mm gun on there too. The range and versatility of the CV90 is second to none. It's unmatched, it's unrivaled, I would say. They are the most successful infantry fighting vehicle of the world of today, and you can argue with me all day long on that. I will take every hit you wish, but the CV90 is my favorite vehicle out there today, and I truly do feel that it is the greatest infantry fighting vehicle of the world of today, just due to the fact of its versatility, its its range of capabilities, its effectiveness on the battlefield, and the number of things that it can do with a very easy to work with price tag. Now they're obviously not cheap, they're obviously not something you can just buy at the dollar store, but the fact is that when you get invested into the CV90 family of vehicles and the programs themselves, you're setting yourself up for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation CV90, because it's not too difficult to upgrade these vehicles. The way in which they're developed allows you to bring it to the next level of, I guess, combat capability than it would be to just buy an entire new program, which is why it is so successful. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank my sponsor for today, Armored Warfare. If you know of the CV90 120 Ghost vehicle, which is a technology demonstrated with the camouflage side, you'll know that is a pretty cool vehicle, and surprisingly you can actually play it in the game. Experience one of the hottest tank games on the market with Armored Warfare, a free-to-play MMO. Master hundreds of unique vehicles and join legions of other players in a story-driven PvE, or challenge them in PvP combat. Register now to receive a rare T64 AV Hunter Premium MET and 7 days of premium time to boost your Merc career start. Are you already an experienced tank commander? Well, use this bonus code to claim a unique temporary CV90 Ghost vehicle and bonus premium time. Have fun on the game, guys. Hope you enjoy. So back to the CV90. Now, many of you know that I did serve on the Warrior platform. I do love the Warrior, but it is time for the Warrior to step aside. In terms of comparison to the CV90, there's no comparison at all, unfortunately. The programs are just completely different. And recently, the CV90 Mark IV has been released. It is legitimately the most incredible IFV. When I study it, research it, and look into it, its capabilities compared to other platforms out there are very, very good. And the reason for why they're very good is because this is the key word of this entire video. Proven. Proven. The vehicle has proved that the technology it has, the platform it utilizes, the equipment it works with, works. The troops that have used it, the countries that have used it, know it works. It has served almost flawlessly with those countries in war zones, not just, dotting around in the countryside. It has served in Afghanistan. It has done its time in conflicts, and is still being utilized today across the spectrum of countries in Europe to very, very high effect. And I just wish people would start looking at this platform and giving it more respect than it deserves, because, of course, the fancy Lynx and the beautiful Ajax and all these new high-strung, high-tech vehicles that are still somewhat in development phases are getting all the spotlight in the showcase, and of course that's how it's going to be. They're the new big contenders, but for me, I like tried and true. I like something that works. And when the CV90 Mark IV came out, it really did give me a whole plethora of more respect for this company and for this platform, because they're capitalizing on technology that's worked and a platform that's worked, and just refining it, cleaning it up, making it better, bringing it to the forefront of specific infantry fighting vehicle expertise, and they know exactly what we're talking about. Today we're going to go over the video from BAE Systems, giving a bit of a breakdown from the director, and I really enjoyed it, so let's take a look.
It has been 3 years since we introduced the CV90 Mark IV. Many new upgrades have been accomplished compared to the CV90 Mark III, and the market is ready for a new CV90. The CV90 Mark IV.
So first of all, let's talk about customer focus. Okay, this is Dan Lindell, the director of combat vehicles for BAE Systems Aggrundsundslevik. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And he seems like a very personable guy, right? First of all, the director of combat vehicles is getting on the vehicle. You're not getting it from some third defense show, with his suit and little, ID badge on in front of all these fancy people in business suits at some defense expo. No, this video is from the director. He is actually going to put his name on the line, his name forefront to this vehicle. To me, that speaks bounds to respect for him actually, holding his own and saying, I believe in this product. So to me, that's a big deal. He's the leader and management of the program. To me, that speaks values too. Secondly, Dan, if you're watching this, dude, please get me out into one of these vehicles one day, please. I want to play around with it. If you want to invite me over to come play around, I'll do dedicated videos. I'll do anything for you, man. Please just let me get on the CV90, please. Desperation now, sorry, I control myself. But seriously though, it does show leaps and bounds to other defense defense procurement projects that are out there in the world, especially for infantry fighting vehicles, you don't see directors of programs, they're not in a business suit, they're actually getting inside the vehicle, he's in the crew commander's spot, he's in the driver's spot, he's actually climbing on this vehicle, talking about it and relating to it as if he is the director. He's the one who's getting this program successful, and it is successful. So Dan, massive respect with you doing this. It just kind of speaks values to me when it comes to, actually trying to get your product to be sold, I guess.
Draws on its legacy and knowledge accumulated by its 7 user nations.
7 user nations. That means 7 governments, 7 defense ministers or defense parties, 7 different groups of procurement, testing, evaluation, financials have decided to choose this vehicle. 7. And these countries aren't stupid, okay? They know what they're looking for. They've specifically analyzed a platform that works for them. And I honestly think that when they procured and selected this vehicle, they've gone on the basis of what has worked and what's tried and tested, what's tried and true. Do we want to spend a huge amount of money on a vehicle that's not even produced yet, that's still in the development phase? Yes, it looks great on paper. Or do we want to use something and buy something that has gone through generation of generation upgrades and challenges and whatever has happened with it, even problems, and select the one that best fits the needs that we want? Because that's the great thing with CV90 is you can pick the platform that works best for you. Do you want a 40mm? Great, we'll give you a 40mm. Do you want a 30mm? Great, we'll give you a 30mm. Do you want additional crew space? Sure, we'll give you the infantry fighting vehicle that doesn't have the heavier gun on top. It's just the carrier. The countries know what they want, and it's been utilized for a long time and is very successful. So I know maybe I'm a little biased going into this video and really sort of selling it beyond the realm of what it should be, but look, the proof's in the pudding here, guys. Look at that list.
This ensures that the CV90 system is not modern only today, but as long as the fleets keep accumulating data and adopt. This by utilizing the potential for growth to increase the performance, mobility, survivability, and firepower.
Now, if there's one thing I know about market feedback analysis and quality control, because I do quite a bit of it in my corporate career, is data. Having as much data or data as you can to gather resources, to prepare business cases, to prepare solutions, to solve problems. It's all available. And with the modern electronic suites that are on infantry fighting vehicles like the CV90, that information is constant. They're tracking heat temperatures in the exhausts or in the transmissions. They're gathering suspension bandwidths. They're suspending data from the turret to communicate with the hull, and are they communicating together via radios? The list is endless, okay? And this data helps so much when it comes to, as Dan said, expanding and improving upon the programs over and over upon each generation of the family of vehicles. Because the more countries that provide data and information, and even just solid feedback, the better the vehicle will be, which is again why, remember what I said about reliability to proven vehicles. This is a proven vehicle because information is so widely and readily available from the countries that are utilizing it to improve, constantly improve with that proven design. It's literally sculpting an ice sculpture. Okay, you get it rough, looks pretty good, it works, and then you're chiseling off the little edges, you're sanding off the little edges to make it a refined, clean sculpture. And that's to me what I think the CV90 is tending to. A beautiful ice sculpture of compact capability.
CV90 is not only modern, it is relevant, which is even more important. From the nuclear threats of the Cold War era, CV90 draws a direct line to the more eminent threat of the thermobaric warheads. The design philosophy of the CV90 with the minimal hull principle still applies. Every engagement starts with the detection of the target. It's hard to detect, it is hard to defeat. So design efficiency is the most important aspect, since it is the ratio between actual usable payload and total weight of the vehicle system. So a 30% increase in the projected side area will not only render a more heavy vehicle, but it will also result in a 50% increase in the detectable area above natural mark.
So as you can see, the profile of the vehicle is quite focused on the detectable areas. So 30% increase in the projected side area. You can see they're taking a little bit of a dig at the links there. You can see the profile of the links in the background. A little bit heavier, of course, the Lynx, and when you get heavier, you make more complications, whether it be, capability to drive longer distances due to fuel amounts,